Howdy lads and gentle gents. I don't know which microphone this is recording from. Didn't have an option for me to use this, but it is plugged in, but it might be a recording from those anyway. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be that way for the whole video if it is those ones. This is the nerdiest thing I've ever done in my life, and I really enjoyed making it. So if you guys like this, or hell, even if you don't, I think I'm going to continue doing this. So that's all. Thank you. Enjoy. This intro might be pointless for most of you, so I won't be too bothered if you skip it. This is for people who might not know what Star Fox 2 is, because believe it or not, although most people know the lore behind its development, there are also people out there who don't know that the US release of Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually Doki Doki Panic in Japan? So here it is, wrapped up tight. Star Fox 2 is an improvement on the original rail shooter developed by Argonaut Studios for the SNES, making use of an onboard chip called the Super FX chip, which boosted performance for games that used real-time 3D polygons in a Mode 7 environment. I'm pretty sure you can count just about on one hand how many games actually used this. So the first Star Fox was such a massive hit that making a sequel was an absolute no-brainer. The only problem was that the game was slated for a 1995 release. This was problematic because the Nintendo 64, known as the Ultra 64 at the time, was just around the corner. Not wanting a Star Fox release that wasn't a late in console life Kirby game to interfere with the launch of the new console, the project was canned. And that project was mostly complete. Fans wouldn't see another Star Fox release until 1998. Before it was cancelled, while being shown off, and I don't care what the internet says, somebody stole the developer cart. Not all heroes wear capes, but some do wear a balaclava. It leaked online in 2002, probably to avoid being found out, especially since the person who originally leaked it was anonymous and still is to this day. By the way, if you're curious as to how complete it was, you can find a commercial for it here on YouTube. This is a reminder for myself to post the link in the description. I found out about this game on old school YouTube, so we're talking about not even 2010s yet, from people who still make videos today, such as Beta64 and Yuri of Wind, among others. Once again, thanks to that heroic thief for the leak, because I got to see footage of people playing it and I was enamored. So much so that I was having dreams about piloting and R-wing and struggling to beat Andros. And I got to hear the game's OST from uploaders who still have their videos up to this day. Jump 1992 and Sonic Speed's My Game are the ones I remember. And now we finally get into what this video is all about. I love this soundtrack to death. It really feels like sequel music, but in a good way. The first game's soundtrack was more orchestral, aside from Corneria and maybe a couple of boss battles. This game's OST makes you feel like we're back and kicking ass. In my opinion, it's so much more memorable than the first. There's almost not a dull song on this soundtrack. Starting off with the game's motif on the title track, there's a few songs that follow the same pattern. I'm also going to provide a link to the playlist with a higher quality version of the OST than what I had to watch back in the day. If you'd like to follow along with the tracks as I speak about them, that's a good way to do it. So check the link in the description. Also, please note that I won't be talking about every single track, and I will cherry pick my favorites. The first song that catches my attention is the short but noteworthy Star Map Introduction and Select, which sound like they were left over from a previous build, because originally they were going to keep the OST orchestral like the first game. The playlist I'm using actually has some beta tracks in it to reflect this. Next thing you know, you're on Venom. This track is not as foreboding as it was in the first game. It's a lot more optimistic despite being the last planet you get to in the game. And it's pretty good, but once you get inside the base, the music changes and really kicks into high gear. It might be a good time to note that every planet has a slightly different music inside and out. The inside typically plays faster, but not necessarily always better. Venom inside though, this is a fucking jam. An old comment I saw described it as a JRPG boss battle, and I think it's pretty accurate. It just kicks ass. I don't have much to say about either of Titania's tracks. I didn't really listen to it much until researching for this video or spend much time on the planet itself in-game. That being said, I think it's pretty atmospheric for what it is. Definitely doesn't jump out to me like many other songs here. Titania Inside, however, this one's pretty good. The extra note added in gave it a lot more character, plus it feels quirky with that one slide note. This is one I'd go out of my way to listen to. I remember hearing the Macbeth track back in the day, and remember almost skipping it because of how boring it was at the beginning. But then it turns into a sort of driving into the sunset type of music. If this ends up doing well, I will elaborate on what I mean. Although, if you think about it, you'll get it. I'm absolutely in love with that vibe. Inside is exactly the same thing but faster. It's basically a Nightcore version of itself. That comment may have just shown my age. See, back in the day, people used to take songs and make them faster and pitch them up, and then they would upload them to YouTube with some random anime girl. That's Nightcore. Also, I just realized that almost half of this paragraph is about Nightcore. Moving on. Eladard. Hell yeah. I've been waiting for this one. This is my favorite set of tracks in the game. It goes from a sprint to flying in the sky. At least that's how I feel about it. And this would be amazing first level music in any other game. I don't seem to be the only one that enjoys it either. You can find several covers and remixes here on YouTube. Check them out. Everybody's got a really unique take. I even lifted a motif for a Mario Paint Composer song back in the day I made. It's called Mount Ruby, link in the description. I could gush on and on about this because of how much I love it and how much it means to me because of reasons I won't explain here because it'll just get rambly. There really is no waiting. It gets right to the point and even has a payoff beyond what it already is. The Inside is just as great in its own right because it's like an addendum to the original. There's a couple of remixes that put both songs together, and rightfully so because it really concludes both of them. I really feel like the composer put his heart and soul into these tracks, or her, I don't know. The following track, Meteor, goes pretty hard. It's super groovy. Kind of strange, but the quirkiness is part of the groove, man. And I'd say the outside track is better than the inside track, which is faster and more intricate, except it's missing the ending. I found a remix of this song that puts both together and adds the ending to the second part. They complement each other well. Link in the description. This video is going to have a lot of links. I'm going to go ahead and lump both boss battles into this and say that they're pretty unremarkable, but I think it's okay because boss battles in this game don't really take longer than 5 seconds anyway. Fortuna might be the most boring 2 tracks in the OST in my opinion. Sorry to any Fortuna from Star Fox 2 fans out there. For a planet that's just about entirely water, it only sounds like it in the intro. It's not doing a very good job at setting the mood with the super heroic music, which is a very weird direction to take if you ask me. It does, however, sound fine on a track that appears to be missing from this playlist, which is Fortuna Underwater. And that works out because it's super muffled, kind of like when you go underwater in Banjo-Kazooie. And I'm sorry, but I cannot find that track anywhere. But you can find it in gameplay videos, so check that out. Oh, fuck it. Link in the description. Fortuna Inside is mostly different from the other. That's kind of all I have to say. I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for this track. It's called Surprise Attack, but basically you would know it as Star Wolf. I know a lot of people like this one, but I just think it's pretty good. It's very fitting and does sound like a fated battle, like you were going to end up here at some point. I do welcome it though, and that being said, I by no means dislike this song, but I do have a hot take. I like this version of the song better than the official Star Fox 64 version. So this is the point where I'm starting to skip a few tracks. Sorry if I skipped your favorite, but I have confidence that I didn't. And if you say I did, I don't believe you. I love you. Now I quite like the missile music. It really paints the picture of this game's main focus, which is to keep Corneria from getting blown up by said missiles, so you have to fly through space and shoot them down. Whichever way down is in space, very fitting, and I don't mind the amount of times you have to hear it throughout the game. Next is a track I consider a classic, Battle Against Mirage Dragon. Right at the beginning, the song is warning you that this boss is serious business. And that is true in game. Mirage Dragon will fuck you up if you're not careful. This is the most intense that whole space orchestra sound font can get, in my opinion. And I fell in love with it as a kid, and I still love it now. Super intense. There was one small song I wanted to talk about before jumping to Andros, and I had never heard it in-game, and came across it first while listening through the OST. Mysterious Space Station. It is as it says it is. I kinda like it. I kinda really like it. Even though there's not a lot going on, I like how foreboding it is. I don't know what it actually leads to in-game, but now I want to find out. I'm glad I finally get to talk about this track, so that somebody understands what I'm saying. You can understand my wife doesn't care as much about the Star Fox 2 OST as I do, or anybody that's made it this far in the video. The song begins just like the final boss of the first game, but then it turns into dissident space chaos, and I'm mainly talking about that bass line. But to the non-musically inclined, it is slightly out of tune to the rest of the song, and it really stands out, like a monster creeping up on you. If you feel there's something off about the song, it's definitely because of that. It doesn't help that a lot of the sample tracks are cut out by most sound effects, such as shooting, which you're doing a lot of at this point. So all you hear is that scaling up and scaling down notes, the bass line, and the drums. And it is incredibly fucking off-putting. I know the off-tune bass line is deliberate to make the encounter more intimidating, and it definitely works. That thing I said near the beginning about having dreams about struggling to fight Andros from inside an R-Wing, every time I would destroy a part of him, there would be another phase, and I would have to beat that phase, but then it would keep moving on, and I was always low on health, like I couldn't get hit again or I would die. I hadn't even played the game at that time. I just watched videos of other people doing it, and that was enough to imprint it on my brain. Thankfully, he's not as hard in-game as he was in my dream, but I'll never forget. And that was about 16 years ago. This is followed up by an appropriately gallant and uplifting staff roll. I do like the first game's staff roll better. I think it's called Ending Demonstration or something. And maybe I'll do a video on that someday. By that I mean the first game. This, but you know, not 2, but 1. Where was I? And believe it or not, there are still a couple more songs I want to talk about. Except for the last one, which I won't actually talk about. I'm just going to use it as the outro, so stick around for that. It's incredibly simple, but it touches the right nerve for sure. Records 3 stands out to me as if it's a song you've earned, and I think you do have to earn it in order to hear it. I've never heard it beyond listening to the soundtrack today. I like it. There's 2 versions of this track, but this one has drums, so it's automatically better. And beyond this, I think that's it for now. I won't be talking about the beta tracks because I think that should go to somebody more qualified who has more than a dollar store vocabulary. But at any point, you could open up the playlist in the description and compare them for yourself if you're interested. I really appreciate you guys listening or watching this all the way through. It means a lot to me, and if you want to see more, please let me know or perhaps suggest an OST, and if I like it, I'll do this all over again. Thanks again, guys, and subscribe if you dig this kind of content. Catch y'all later.